Ever get that, like, icky feeling about a friendship? Like something's off.
Yeah.
We're going deep on that today. Toxic friendships. And this isn't like your typical self-help stuff.
Right.
You sent in this Real Talk podcast episode with these hosts, Maya and Tom, right?
Yeah.
They break down all the signs of friendships gone bad. So let's dive into their talk, see what's up.
Sounds good.
So they start off, and this really hit me, how much we focus on romantic relationships, but friendships, they're huge for us too, right?
Oh, totally. They shape so much of how we see ourselves, how we handle the world.
And Maya and Tom, they really nailed it, those subtle ways of friendship turns toxic.
Mm.
They started with this thing I bet loads of people relate to, that one-sided feeling.
Yeah, that imbalance can really mess things up.
They called it a two-way street, which I love. So simple, but spot on.
Makes sense, right? Like any relationship, it's got to go both ways.
And what I thought was really interesting was how they connected it to this need for validation, like one person's always seeking it more.
Oh, absolutely. And that can be so draining for the other person. You're constantly giving, they're constantly taking, and it builds resentment. Maya and Tom talked about how it chips away at your self-worth too, which, ouch.
It's not about keeping score, but a good friendship should energize you, not leave you feeling drained all the time, you know?
For sure. They even gave that example, always being the one making plans, offering support. Been there.
Oh, the worst.
Yeah.
Like you're putting in all the effort and it's just, you're not reciprocated. That's not friendship, that's emotional labor.
It really is. And that actually, it kind of leads into their next point about negativity being a major red flag.
Oh yeah, negativity. And they got into all these different shades of it, not just like obvious insults, but all these little things.
It's not always the big blowouts. Sometimes it's the constant complaining, the subtle digs disguised as jokes, the backhanded compliments.
Which honestly, that stuff can be even worse because it's hard to pinpoint, right? Like, is this person actually being toxic or am I just being sensitive?
It makes you second guess yourself, and that's what's so insidious. Over time, those little digs really eat at your confidence. They chip away at your self-esteem.
Maya and Tom, they were so good at describing how it sneaks up on you, you know? Like at first you brush it off, but if you constantly feel bad after hanging out, something's not right.
You got to listen to that feeling.
Right. They talk about how our gut often picks up on things way before our brains catch up.
Totally. They said to think of it like a smoke detector. If it's going off, there's probably a reason, even if you can't see the flames yet. It's like your body's giving you a heads up, right?
Totally, like pay attention, this isn't good. But then even when you realize it, it's like, what do you do about it?
Right. It's not always easy to just cut people off, especially a friend you've had for a while.
Yeah, Maya and Tom talked about setting boundaries, have those tough conversations, which easier said than done.
For sure. But they did give this example. I thought it was so relatable, the whole guilt trip thing.
Oh, the guilt trip. Oh, classic manipulation tactic, right?
And it's so good at making you question yourself.
Like, am I being a bad friend for saying no?
Exactly. But Maya and Tom were clear, healthy friendships. They're about mutual support, not this power imbalance where one person's always calling the shots.
Totally. And they had some real life examples of how that sounds like. If you were really my friend, you would.
Oh, yeah. Or that one, you're the only one who gets me.
It's like emotional blackmail.
Yeah.
And speaking of emotionally draining, they talked about this too, right? Feeling seen, validated in a friendship.
So important. They said it's a major sign of toxicity when you're constantly feeling invalidated or dismissed, like your feelings don't even matter.
Yeah, and it can be such small things, but it chips away at you. Like you share something important and they just brush it off or turn the conversation right back to themselves.
It's like you're not even being heard. Maya and Tom talk about how painful that is, to open up and then feel totally shut down.
And then you start to wonder, am I being too sensitive? Are my problems not that big a deal?
Which is exactly what they want you to think. But in a healthy friendship, there's space for both people's experiences.
Right, it's not a competition. A good friend, they make an effort to understand where you're coming from, even if they haven't been through the exact same thing.
And they definitely don't make it all about themselves, which Maya and Tom said is another big warning sign, right? That me attitude.
Ugh, yeah, like you try to share something and it always comes back to them.
Exhausting, right? It's like
Yeah.
their needs always take priority. Maya and Tom, they were really spot on about how invalidating that can be for the other person.
It's the opposite of what a friendship should be. And speaking of things that are opposite, they got into boundaries, which we talk about so much with dating, but it's important in friendships too, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes it's even harder with friends, you know? Like we feel this pressure to be chill or whatever.
Oh, totally. But Maya and Tom, they stressed boundaries are about respect, understanding in any relationship. Like
Mhm.
knowing what's okay, what's not okay to share, or how much you're willing to help with, stuff like that.
For sure. Like they gave that example. You confide in a friend, something really personal, and they blab it to other people.
The worst.
Yeah.
Or constantly pressuring you to do things you're not comfortable with, even after you said no.
That's such a disregard for your feelings, your limits. Maya and Tom were really clear, repeated boundary violations. That's a huge red flag.
So we've covered a lot. One-sided effort, negativity, manipulation, feeling invalidated, lack of boundaries. It's heavy, but Maya and Tom, they don't just leave us hanging with all the bad stuff. They talk about this feeling too, right? That dread that can creep in with a toxic friend.
Oh, totally. Like almost a physical feeling in your gut when you know you're going to see them.
Yes, like, ugh, I have to see so-and-so. You felt that?
Oh, for sure. It's like our bodies know what's up before our brains even catch up.
They really stress that, trusting your gut.
Yeah.
If you constantly feel anxious or drained around this person, pay attention to that. It's like a warning system, right? But okay, so you feel it, then what? Maya and Tom talk about setting boundaries, which, how do you even start that conversation?
Yeah, it's tough, especially if you're not used to it, you know? Like with a friend, you don't want to come off harsh.
Right.
But what they said, and it makes sense, it's not about being mean, it's about taking care of yourself in the friendship too.
Okay, so how do you do that? Like, what do you actually say?
So they suggested this thing using I statements, so it's not blaming the other person.
Oh, interesting.
Right. So instead of like, you're always making this about you, which that just puts them on the defensive,
Makes sense.
you can say something like, I feel like my experiences get lost when the conversation always goes back to, whatever it is.
Oh, that's good. It's still honest, but way less attacky.
Exactly. And Maya and Tom, they said even though it feels awkward at first, being direct but kind, that's key.
But what if, even with all that, nothing changes?
Yeah.
Like the friend just doesn't get it or gets mad you're bringing it up at all.
Yeah, that's rough. And then they talked about that too, how sometimes, as much as you try, some friendships just, they run their course.
Oof, yeah. Hard to hear, but probably true sometimes.
It's easy to get stuck trying to fix things. But Maya and Tom, they were saying sometimes, the healthiest thing is mess, to create some distance.
It's like you can't force it to work if it's just not working.
Right. And it's not selfish to walk away. It's self-care, like they said.
Yeah, realizing you deserve better.
Exactly. You deserve to be in friendships where you feel good, respected, supported, all that.
So big picture, I'm hearing this from Maya and Tom, and from this whole deep dive, we have way more power than we think in our relationships, even if it doesn't feel like it all the time.
Totally. But it starts with noticing, right? Seeing those red flags, listening to our gut, and then actually doing something about it.
Having those tough talks,
Right.
setting boundaries, and yeah, sometimes knowing when to walk away.
It's about building the kind of friendships that light us up, not the ones that drain us dry.
Love that. So to everyone listening, as you're thinking about all this, what kind of friendships do you want? What kind of friend do you want to be? Until next time, happy deep diving.